Okay, I guess this is chapter 4. I really didn't know it would be taking this long, but I guess that happens. But anyways, this is the fourth in the videos that I've recorded here, responding to Deconverted Man's questions about my video, which of course the video I just kind of, it's pretty abbreviated as far as things that I've thought about. So go from there.
However, by ourselves, we do not have all the answers to the mysteries of the universe.
Oh no, that's so terrible. We don't know stuff about the universe. How horrible. What are we going to do? Well, either we're going to pretend like we already have the answers from some book, or we're going to go out there and investigate and find out what is true. I think I'd rather go out there and find out what is true rather than thinking I already have the answer. Given the choice between religion that doesn't change and adheres to doctrine and dogma over investigation into what's real, and science that looks into what's real and admits when it makes a mistake, I'll go with science every single time.
Well, I started with the science in a sense, in that I became to believe in a higher power. I guess that was my first step. Which higher power and why, that came later, and that's a whole separate issue, really. So I really shouldn't go into detail right at this moment. I could do that later.
We can't see or touch our own consciousness.
I'm going to go along with this analogy. We can't see or touch the data contained on a flash drive.
So how much more is there that we can't see or touch?
Well, I guess it'd also be the data on my computer itself. I can't see or touch that.
Well, okay. Yeah, you can't see or touch that, but it is information. And I think you're coming up with something here that I'll respond to.
A sound is only a sound when it is perceived by an ear. Otherwise, it's just compressed air molecules. If there is no consciousness to perceive something, does it really exist?
Yes. Yes, it does. If it exists, then it exists, despite the fact of somebody being there to know that it exists. Bad philosophy 100.
Well, okay, that kind of goes back to what I was saying. Well, the analogy with the tree falling in the forest, or actually I guess I just said if, sound is nobody there to perceive it. It goes back to the tree falling in a forest, nobody there to hear it. Sound, or like what we hear, what we perceive, happens in our minds, more specifically consciousness. So there are compressed molecules that come from the sound of the tree falling, and the air molecules pressed together enter our ear, and we make a determination that that's a sound. If we're not there to perceive the sound, all it is compressed air, and that's not a big deal, because what we consider to be sound is usually between, say, 30 hertz and 15,000 hertz, and if it's only 15 hertz, or 10 hertz, or like my hand moving like this is pushing air, but it's pushing it at like 2 hertz, So that's not going to make a sound. All it's doing is pushing air, so it's not a sound. But the reason I bring that up is just because consciously, if like what I was saying about that dimension of consciousness holding things together without an overriding consciousness to organize things. And when I say things, I mean we look at things and we tap them and think, well, that's solid. But actually there's electrons moving around, neutrons, and there's a lot of space in between this. So as far as tangibility and solid, it is from our perspective. In the same way that we hear a sound and it's a sound, we feel something, we touch something, and it's real. But if it was totally disorganized, if it didn't have any organizing features, if it had no information, it had no pattern to follow, the electrons just flew off into any direction. There weren't any forces keeping things together. And that was more or less my point. We'll move on.
I don't know, but when you think about it, Would it really matter either way? Without consciousness, the question could never be asked because there'd be no such concepts as something or nothing.
Oh my word, I agree with him on something. Wow. Yeah, if there was no consciousness, there'd be no concepts. Okay.
I do know that there is too much order and understandable disorder, equal and opposite, for the universe not to have guidance.
Well, you might believe that you know that it's true, but as far as whether or not it is actually true, you don't have anything to show that it's actually true. Therefore, you have a belief.
There are
Well, I have things to show, but it is a belief. It's a theory. So a lot of people have theories. I mean, Michio Kaku has his string theory. It's a belief. You could say it's a theory. A theory sounds more scientific, but it's a belief or, a theory, and it's based on something. I mean, he bases it on something, and I base what I believe on something. It's not totally baseless.
balances and cycles to everything. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Our consciousness will spend eternity somewhere.
And here's where the data on the flash drive and in the computer metaphor finally pays off. Yeah, maybe it will be stored somewhere for a while, but eventually it will become corrupt because of time. Or it might get erased. And once it's erased, it's gone. Forever. Period. If I erase the data on that flash drive or destroy that flash drive, or I erase the data on my computer and or destroy my computer, it's gone. That's it. The end of it. There is nothing more. It doesn't survive that. The energy required to put data on my flash drive does not equate to that the data on my flash drive will survive me deleting the data on the flash drive. Similarly, the data inside my brain will not survive the death of my brain. Unless you have something to demonstrate otherwise.
Well, and here again, I guess it's a theory, but what I was saying about that consciousness dimension, to use your analogy about the flash drive and the hard drive, if they weren't connected to the internet, they would go away. But I'm kind of saying that the consciousness dimension would be kind of equating to an internet where there'd be cloud storage, so to speak, where nothing really goes away. And, for example, what SETI is looking for is things like we broadcast into space. Well, we don't broadcast into space on purpose, but old TV shows from the 50s, they say, are like, they're like 65 years out there. They're heading out into space. It's information, it's organized, and it's heading out there. And we can see, I think we can see an intelligence in that. I mean, if SETI had an incoming correspondence similar to that, I don't think they would just say, oh, I think it's just a coincidence that these, patterns came together in a electromagnetic field and, watching I Love Lucy or something. If it was coming in like that, I don't think that the patterns that they would see, they would necessarily write off as coincidental. And, but then again, some people might, I don't know. But anyways, I would say that the analogy, well, okay, here's one. The server that Hillary Clinton had in her basement, you could say that that's been wiped clean. It's all gone. But at one point it was connected to the internet. So are we sure that everything on her server is gone? Can we be sure that it's not on a Chinese server or Russian server? It's been hacked. Anything that's connected to the internet can be hacked, and that information could be stored somewhere else. So I'm saying that a consciousness dimension is, a repository for information, for knowledge bank. It's consciousness. It's what goes on in our head. I mean, I understand that it's it's basis like the same as a computer, and it's like electrical and stored. But consciousness to me seems more than simple storage of information. And that's a feeling. Yeah, okay. So it's not as tangible as what you're looking for. I still got some time. Let's go.
The struggles and simple pleasures of our daily lives can keep us from considering deeper issues, such as where we will go after our bodies die.
Well, obviously that's not true, because you're sitting there having supposedly considered this question in despite of whatever struggles you might be going through. So, no, it's simply not true that we don't stop and ponder these sort of things. As far as where we go, that assumes that there's somewhere to go after our body stops functioning. And it also assumes that the brain and that the mind of the brain is more than the sum of its parts, which you have to demonstrate as being true.
Well, I haven't fully demonstrated that. I gave the quantum entanglement as an example of how consciousness must have a connection, and specifically our consciousness, because it said that the particles react differently when they're observed by a person. And that is a piece of the puzzle. That's a partial proof of something, our minds in some way touching areas that we wouldn't expect them to touch in a physical, three-dimensional. So there's another dimension, there's another point of connection to that, in the same way that there's a connection of the sun to the planet Earth as far as gravity goes. And that's very abstract, I understand that. I don't know, what did you just say? I'm just, go back here. Sorry.
After our body stops functioning. And it also assumes that the brain and that the mind of the brain is more than the sum of its parts, which you have to demonstrate as being true.
Oh, that's right. I remember what I was going to comment on. Yeah, at the beginning of what you just said last, you said that people obviously do consider deeper questions. And of course that's true. I was making another generalization because for the first 33 years of my life, I really didn't think about those things. And I still know people today that, they have a busy life. And some of the things that I've said so far, understandably, people kind of glaze over and say, huh? And I can understand that, obviously. But I've thought of them, and since I've thought of them, I just thought I would pass along the results of what I've concluded. And, it starts with a belief. Yeah, I guess that kind of sums it up. It is a generalization. Obviously, people do think these things through. You have, obviously. Now, conveniently, I came to the 15-minute mark, and I'm going to have to continue that at a convenient spot for me, because this is where you are asking direct questions about the Bible. And that is more difficult to defend than intelligent design. They're kind of like a two-step. I'd say intelligent design is the easier of the two. And so I'll just do a little research and come back and do another one tomorrow and leave it here. I didn't really think it would take as long to do these, but I did 4 videos. It didn't take me long to do the 4 videos. It took an hour, and would have taken a lot longer to type all that out. So I'm glad I did it in a video form, but somehow I thought it was going to be less time consuming than what it turned out to be. So I guess it'll have to be a 5th video.